What's going on YouTube? It's your boy Logisticalstyles coming at you with another video, and we are back in the lab in the studio and just taking some time off in between gigs just to do kind of an update and kind of just talk about something I've been experiencing with my my decks, my Rane 12s, and I want to see if you've also been encountering the same thing if you have Rane 12s, regardless of what version or what model you have. And let's just go ahead and hop into it. So I've been looking online on Facebook and in other DJ groups and have noticed that there's been an uptick of people reporting that their decks are going into like a super fast spinning mode, you know, just randomly. And I gotta say, this is something that I've actually experienced with the first Rane 12 that I bought probably about a year or 2 years ago. Actually had been over 2 years ago, and it was the MK1 model. It was the version with the power cord and the connectors on the bottom versus on the back plate. And when I got it, after maybe a month or two of using it, I started getting these instances of the deck would just start spinning super fast, just randomly. And it happened a couple of times at home here while practicing, but I didn't get to experience it live until maybe 3 or 4 months after me using these or having it. And it was at a gig, and I was using one deck, and then the other deck was just internal mode for instant doubles. And that's how I use them a lot at this one particular gig because the booth is so small. You can fit both decks into this particular booth, but it's kind of a tight fit, and sometimes I'm just being lazy and I don't want to bring both decks. But when it happened, I contacted Rane, and they had me send the deck in for repair. It took a little while. I ended up sending it to a third-party vendor that they use for repairs, and it went to them, and it came back. I had some issues with the repair on the way it came back because the body of the unit was damaged pretty badly, and I know that's not how I had sent it in. And they did tell me that when they did the repair, it wasn't a matter of just a firmware update, but they also had to just replace a motor, which is why it took a little bit longer, because they had to wait for the motor to be delivered. So I made a complaint about the unit that I received. It was just damaged. It was scraped up in the corners. It looked like it had been dropped. The top panel was kind of bent in certain places, so it just wasn't what I sent them. So they ended up sending me a brand new version of that deck. Same model, same make and model, power cords under the bottom. This was the MK1. This was before there was even talk of the MK2 version. So this was early on. And since then, I'd never had a problem with it. I worked over a year with no issues with it, and I was happy enough to go ahead and get this MK2 version when this came out, I believe back in, was it like May? No, it had to be like, I bought this in April, so it's probably like March or February where it was announced and eventually released. I waited, a couple weeks, and then I got the MK2 pretty early on. I paid full price for it, and it worked fine. It was doing very well for a long time. I was doing a lot of practice here in the studio, doing a lot of videos and doing some gigs eventually when they started kicking in. No problem. But it wasn't until a month ago I was out at the same location, and I was spinning with the MK2, only one deck, using instant doubles for the second deck, and it happened maybe about 3 hours into my night. It just went super fast. Just started speeding really fast, and I did what most people do when this happens. I panicked. I started hitting every button I could. Power knob, start stop button. It would stop. The power button would power down the deck, and powering it back on would be normal, but once you hit start again, it'd start flying super fast. And I'm not talking like as if the pitch range was in 50 and you had it up all the way knocked up. It was way faster than that. This was like 78 RPM with the pitch knocked up really fast. So this was really unusual. And I hit every button from the cue buttons, the deck changing selector buttons, and then the only thing I remember that happened right before it fixed itself was I hit the different pitch range selection buttons. So I think I hit them all three at once, or a combination of them, and then start stop quickly, and that made it act normal. My next step would have been to raise the deck forward, power it off, power it back on, or I would have preferred to have done that instead of just pulling the USB and putting it back in. But either way, those were my last two options, and I fortunately didn't have to go through that because I don't like doing that when I'm live. And another fortunate thing that happened is it did not happen to this deck while I was playing a record on it, while I was playing a song. What I usually do, my workflow when I'm working with instant doubles, one deck with instant doubles, is I bring in the song, and then as soon as I got it mixed in, instant double, switch it over to that deck. So most of the time I'm in internal mode on this side if I'm not using both decks. So fortunately it happened that way. There was no change in the music. People outside didn't really know what was going on, except I may have fumbled the mix a little bit because I was a little nervous bringing in the next song. But beyond that, the rest of the night it was normal. I made a complaint to Rane. They finally responded to me and told me to do a pitch calibration, which I did. On the MK2, it's a little bit different to do the pitch calibration, but they sent me to a web page on the InMusic web page, not the Rane DJ web page website. So they sent me a link. I'll put it in the description so you can see the steps for recalibrating the MK2 or the MK1. It's very similar steps, except you have a little bit more feedback because the MK2 has a screen which will verify that you're in test mode, and you can do the moving of the pitch forward all the way to the back, and then in the middle, and then restarting the deck, and that's supposed to calibrate your pitch. With the MK1 you do the same thing, except to get to test mode it's a little bit different. I forget what the key or button combination is, but I have a video that I did a couple years ago that described that in full, so go ahead and check that out. But anyway, I recalibrated it and been practicing with it here at the house. Haven't had any issues, but when it was time for me to go back to that venue, I was still a little nervous about it because I didn't have enough practice time or enough testing time. So I bought my trusty MK1, which I had been using for over a year with no problem. And wouldn't you know it, same setup. I was using this deck, at the venue, and the third song I played, I was fortunately on my instant doubles deck, but the third song I played, I get that helicopter mode, that super speedy mode where it's just spinning really fast. Exactly the same thing. And this time I remember that I was able to get it to stop by doing a double tap on the start stop button. So it's never always the same thing to make it stop. Sometimes I think you just have to randomly hit buttons to kind of wake it up or snap it out of whatever glitch it's stuck in. But that's happened to me now on both decks. Since it happened to me last week, I haven't taken the time to do the calibration on this. I'm going to do it in a little while, but I'm a little nervous now about using these out at gigs because if it ever happens while I'm playing a song, it can be really disastrous. And I've been watching on Facebook groups, the Rane Facebook group and a couple other Facebook groups, where it has been happening. It seems like a lot more frequently. Now, I am not on any of the newer operating systems. I'm still operating on High Sierra with my Serato laptop. My version of Serato is not the latest version. It's the version that was available in April of this year, which is when I got this deck. I haven't updated anything since then. So I don't think it's necessarily my software version or my operating system version. I think there's something really glitchy going on with these. And I'm gonna do the pitch calibration for this deck. I'm gonna take this one out. I play again on this on the 10th, so I got about a week, less than a week, to get some practice in with this, test it out to make sure I'm comfortable with it. I'm gonna bring it back out. In fact, the next time I go out, I'm gonna bring both decks, and we'll see how it works out. I transport these in my Odyssey cases, so they are very well protected. They're not getting bumped around, so I don't think it's anything like that. I think it might be some kind of firmware or software within the deck. But I just wanted to make this video. It's been a while since I made a video, so it's time to make one. And then this is a relevant topic of conversation. If you have the Rane 12s, have you experienced this? If you have not experienced this, then more power to you. I'm hoping that this was just a really random one-off thing, because like I said, this deck had been working fine since I got it as a replacement. I hadn't had any issues at all, and up until just recently, this deck had been working fine for several months. So leave your comments or your experiences below, and we'll see if we can find and get a solid answer from Rane about what's going on with these decks, why they are going into this super fast mode. If you have any questions, I can give you any more details about the circumstances, and maybe we can try to troubleshoot and pinpoint what's going on and give some data to Rane. But until then, keep looking out for more videos. I got some more stuff coming, and thank you for watching. And if you're not a subscriber, go ahead and subscribe so you can get notifications when I do more videos. Until then, I'm out.